Good morning, chat. My name is Penbu, the programming, puzzle gaming, and music making VTuber on Linux, and today we are interviewing Jagriff, the creator of Gentoo Rescue. Hello, Jagriff. Welcome in.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I look forward to talking more about my game.
All right. Say hello to chat here. 529. Welcome in. It's a human. Yeah, I think you might actually be the first one to appear in the flesh on the channel. So congrats.
I'm glad I found my webcam an hour ago because I was a bit of a scramble to find it.
Chat, I hope the audio is okay. Yeah, so you are the creator of Gentoo Rescue, whose demo we played back on Thursday. What's this game about for those who haven't seen it?
Yeah, so it's a penguin puzzle game. So it's a puzzle game, kind of like. I mean, it's inspired mainly by Baba Is You, but it's similar to a board game Ricochet Robots. You control penguins and also some walruses, and they slide on tiles. It's a grid-based game. They slide on tiles, but then, that's a really simple premise. The game's really about all the different mechanics that get introduced and how they interact with each other and how they have a lot of secret uses that sort of get explored over a long campaign of many, many worlds.
Yeah, Cigarettes is definitely a way to put it. I have to say, playing through the demo on Thursday was a lot of fun discovering, because I'm in your server, and I have seen a little bit of the mechanics that are coming up that would come up in the full game. But it's good how in the demo you progressively show the player how should I put this? Like, progressively show the mechanic. Reveal is the right word. I think you did a video on how you do, how you create puzzles, is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to do more. I wanted to do like an actual series. I did one video and it didn't, no one really seemed to care about it, and it was, took some time away from the game development. And so, yeah, I haven't worked on more. I would like to return to that.
Yeah, so I gave it a watch, I think it was yesterday, and I found it pretty insightful. Do you want to give us a summary of how you develop these puzzles?
That's an hour long, or not, if not more, talk, but the short answer is you start with something interesting about your mechanics. Usually these are discovered. I make a mechanic and I have maybe one or two ideas of how it can be used, but then once I put it into the game and start playing around with it and just interact with other mechanics, it's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, I didn't know you could do that, right? I'm learning about the game as I'm sort of developing it. And so anytime I see something interesting, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a puzzle. Everything that's interesting should be a puzzle. So you start with that basic idea, and then you try to craft something where you lead the player to discover this cool idea, and then you have to make them not just discover the idea, but then also figure out how they can apply it to solve a small problem. And try to do that in such a way that there's no major frustrating moments. By that I mean, the main avoidance I've tried to put into my puzzles is not making them too complex, not having red herrings, and trying to avoid impossible states that the player isn't really sure about. Because if you start having the player go down a path where they're in an impossible state, but they're not sure they're in an impossible state, they might just sit there stuck for a very long time without realizing it. So those are sort of general guidelines, but it all starts with an idea, something interesting about the mechanics.
Yeah, and emergent behavior from the various mechanics is always fun to discover. Because you make the game and then you think you know everything about it, and then you don't actually.
I learned very quickly that was not the case. Very, very early on, I was actually the spring item. The item is in the demo, so it's I feel free to talk about this one. So this item, I was like, oh, it's a sliding puzzle game, so the animals are naturally going to always be against walls. So what if I just give them a way to get one tile away from a wall? It's a really just slight change on the way the sliding works. And then I made some puzzles and realized, oh wait, you can bounce backwards off of walls, and that small, it's such a small and simple thing, and that's actually how the spring is used in almost every level, is by bouncing backwards off of a wall or off of another animal. and that was something that I didn't even think about when I put it in the game initially.
Yeah, the spring item, I like it, but it's also can be pretty frustrating at times. I think you might have seen that during my playthrough. Actually, yeah,
the demo.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was lurking. I was working actually while you were streaming the demo, but I was keeping an eye on it. But I didn't have audio for most of it. But yeah, the demo is particularly the progression world. That's the spring world that's introduced. There is one small issue that hopefully is avoided in the full game. It's definitely avoided in the full game. But in the demo, you see this level off to the side, and you're like, how do I reach it? And it turns out you actually can't do it yet. That early on into a demo, players aren't going to realize that, and it's very easy to try to do the impossible.
Yeah, I definitely ran into that because I thought I had everything, but then apparently you need another mechanic from a later level to actually do it. Which you thankfully came in and gave me a hint. I think we would have been stuck there for a while.
I didn't give you a hint. I just said, if you feel like you're stuck, you can feel free to look at hints. I have the hint system in the game, and I mean I play puzzle games. I'm never gonna look at hints. That's how a lot of people approach the hints. And I've worked really hard on the hints to not make them spoil anything. Usually, like a puzzle might have 4 hints. And if you've been sitting there for 10 minutes stuck on the puzzle, chances are you're going to read the first hint and you're going to be like, oh, I already knew that, right? So for some players that might be annoying because they're not being helped. But on the other hand, it means that you kind of feel free to look at hints to just make sure you're on the right track at the very least. Of course, someone that's stuck for 10 minutes might not get help from hint 1, but they might get help from hint 2 or 3 or 4. But yeah, definitely encourage people to not be not to be afraid of looking at hints if they feel like they're very struck and frustrated and just want to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit so I've played through most of Baba's, and I will admit to having looked at the wiki more than once. Yeah, it's good that there's a built-in hint system though. I think my problem there was I didn't realize that there was one. I kind of just glossed over it when I was looking at the journal. But I do think it is a good thing to have in the game.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the issue that you had with the demo was on a level that is impossible the first time you land on it.
Yes.
And there's something similar to that, and I mean, there's something similar to that in the full game. The level in the full game is literally called impossible, though, and it's a little bit better communicated there that it actually is impossible. And so yeah, hopefully players won't even need to look at hints in that case. But
yeah.
If they want to, they're there.
Yeah, level titles can be hints sometimes too. How much emphasis do you put on having good level title?
If I can come up with something good, I put it. If I can't, I just put something random. That's kind of what I've done. I tried. It took a long time to name all the levels. That was a lot more work than I expected it to be. And you're right. The level names can be hints, which I don't really want exactly. It's weird. So usually I want the level name to describe something about what the level is about. So maybe the way it looks, or maybe some technique that the player probably already knows but they need to apply. But I don't necessarily want the level name to be something about the solution that they wouldn't already know, or that isn't necessarily what the level is about, but just some trick about the solution. Because some players aren't even going to look at the level names, and players that do don't want to get spoiled. And so yeah, it tries to sort of find that balance between being a relevant name but also not being a spoiler type hint.
Yeah, that's fair. As they say, the 2 hardest things about computer science is cache and validation and naming things, and also off by 1 errors.
Yeah, naming things is definitely up there.
Why don't we dial it back a little bit? How long have you been working on Gentoo Rescue for?
I started the end of 2023, so late November. So, oh wait, no, sorry, 2022. Oh no, that's an extra year. So it's a little bit over 2 years. I think I launched by 2 years and 4 or 5 months. And I took a break a little bit after the first year. I took 2 or 3 months off. So yeah, about 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's pretty polished for what it is. Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know how long it takes to make a game like this, but within 2 years, this is pretty good, I'd say.
Well, if I were to remake it, it would be a lot faster. Just say that.
Yeah, I mean,
there were a lot of things
there, go ahead.
that there were a lot of things that I learned along the way. This is my first time working on any game, commercial, non-commercial. So, I mean, the first year was a lot of learning, not just like puzzle design, but how they even use an engine. Like I have a programming background and a math background, but I had never worked in a game engine before. I had used Blender, but very, very lightly, just like for small 3D printing stuff. Never like doing like actual models. Never done any animations, and so like so many skills I had to sort of, I wouldn't say learn because I wouldn't really say I'm proficient in any of them, but get by. I had to get by on a lot of different skill sets. And then on top of that, just like the game design, like watching the game evolve over a couple of years. There's a lot of work that went into things that ended up being scrapped, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how development goes in general too. You find out what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And speaking of Blender, did you make these assets yourself largely?
Yeah, everything's mine. The only thing I didn't make specifically would be a lot of the sound effects were freesound.org. I modified them typically with like Audacity or FL Studio. And then the capsule art, I hired an artist to make the capsule art. And I didn't make the file. That's another thing. But yeah, everything else I made.
Yeah, I mean, as a solo dev, it's pretty hard to find good art. So it's good that you're able to make it yourself.
Well, I can make art myself. Wouldn't say that it's really great art, but it does the job, and that's kind of all I needed. Because I mean, the theming and the art style, the way the game looks, that's important. It's super important. But for me, it's mostly just like the mathy, like how do I solve these puzzles, and that's what I guess most of my attention went towards.
Yeah, I think definitely having the core mechanics is important to get down, and the art can come later. Because you can always hire somebody to spiff it up afterwards, but if the game isn't good, then you don't get the player base.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get a player base when you don't have good art either.
Oh yeah, that too. So why penguins and why walruses?
Originally it wasn't. Originally, the game was actually, so this was a year ago, actually around May, I think. Yeah, last year around May is when I completely changed the theming of the game. And the game used to be called Slycursion, like sliding and recursion. And so I wanted a theme that better fit the mechanics. And there were some other reasons too that are kind of spoilery for the way things evolve in the game. But yeah, originally it was just shapes. Like you would move a 3D square, like a rectangular prism, a cylinder, a cone, a star. Like you would just move. It was like completely abstract. And yeah, I wasn't really pleased with that, and I was at the point where I was getting a little overconfident. Like, oh, I can do animations. I can model up some penguins, and so that's kind of where it went. And also, there were some other mechanic ideas I had that would kind of fit penguins and walruses a lot better, regarding fish, and it was a really good change, not just because obviously everyone likes penguins, so the game is done probably better because everyone likes penguins, and it's a penguin puzzle game now. But it has actually changing the theming has unlocked some new mechanical ideas as well that were developed last year. After the switch, I started asking questions. Oh, what if you did this? What if you did this? And these questions would never have been asked if they were just shapes. So it's crazy how, I mean, game design is holistic. Like you can't just look at each individual piece on its own. You kind of have to take in the whole thing instead of doing something like changing the way the characters look. It doesn't just change the looks. It could also, inspire some other aspects of the game.
Yeah, I do think it's a lot better with this theme because while abstract shapes and all that are very easy to implement, I think as you said, people do like animals, and I have. So when I rated out on Thursday, the person I rated into said it was cute. So that's it captures attention that way.
Well, that has some side effects as well, though, because they see this cute game. It's like, oh, this cute puzzle game. Let me download it. Then they get in the face by these penguins that are brutal.
I'm going to switch to the other scene here, just so people can see if they haven't seen it already. So this is what the game looks like. This is the menu. You go into here. This is the first map that you get into. And actually, we're a little bit ahead. So I'm gonna exit that. Yeah. Go ahead and reset that. And we can go into the first level here. We'll reset that as well. Right, you slide around, you control this penguin, you slide around and you try to get it to go home. And those are the basics there. And then it also comes with a bunch of other items, and also, for example, you have special tiles here that do things, and special walls that break when you hit them. Things like that. So how many items and special tiles and whatnot do you think you have in the game right now?
10 items technically, although 2 items are almost the same, but they work in like orthogonally, I'll say. So basically there's 9 items, and then there are, as far as tile elements, just like off the top of my head, I want to say like 5, or maybe 5 or 6, and then there's a couple different types of walls, like four different types of walls. The tile elements and the walls, those were not really things that I wanted to add to the game. Kind of were necessary to make puzzle design work. One issue just in general with sliding mechanics is that the puzzles can become very, very open. And when you have open puzzles, but by open I mean that you just you just throw stuff at the wall and you have a puzzle, and it's technically a puzzle because you can solve it, but maybe you can solve it in like 16 different ways, and maybe one of them is really interesting, but all the other ways aren't so interesting. So that would be a very open puzzle, and that's not what I want. I want puzzles that are very strict, where there's like only a single solution that the player has to discover is necessary. So that uniqueness is like sort of an important aspect of that. In a way, it's like you're trying to prove that this is the only way that you can solve the puzzle as you solve the puzzle, because that gives the player a way to sort of hook into the puzzle and understand how it works. If there's 3 different ways to solve it and 2 of the ways don't do anything interesting, then I don't want those to be part of it. And so a lot of these tile mechanics and wall mechanics are there to add uniqueness and to force certain ideas to be applied, because sliding movement and having multiple animals that you can move independently, that just gives birth to so many puzzles that are very open. But with that said, even though these elements aren't things that I would necessarily want in the game, they still add a lot to the game beyond just the uniqueness aspect, because as you add items, they start interacting with the items and you get all these emergent consequences. So it's very, very, very interesting elements to have as they start interacting with things, but on their own maybe not so interesting.
Yeah, I think as you said, the need to force a player into a solution is pretty important. I recall the Baba dev saying that he would devise this elaborate puzzle, and then somebody managed to shortcut it.
Yes. Yeah, puzzle. So yeah, that's we call that puzzle cheese. Someone cheesed my puzzle, where they just like completely circumvented the whole idea I had, and that spoils the whole puzzle. Because as I said earlier, a puzzle starts with an interesting idea. If someone doesn't have to interact with that interesting idea at all, then what are they doing? So that's that's the way to circumvent the cheese is having mechanics like that. And I think it's probably more of an issue with Gentoo Rescue just because of the sliding movement and having multiple characters that move independently. But of course, Baba has this issue as well. Like he's built a programming language in a Sokoban game, so like there's going to be a lot of creative things that you haven't thought of. And so yeah, that's always a concern. Now, unlike Baba, I'm fortunate enough not to have built a programming language inside my game, which means that the state graphs are relatively simple. I've also focused on really small puzzles. So I was actually able to write a solver for my game, which having a solver hasn't helped me make better puzzles, but it's helped me find issues with puzzles. I know that kind of sounds contradictory, but in the early days when I had a solver, I would make puzzles that were technically unique, but maybe not so good of puzzles, and so I had to learn puzzle design. The solver isn't a silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination, but the solver does help you find things like cheeses, and so that's a point where I can be fairly confident saying you shouldn't find any cheese in the game anywhere.
That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, it really helps if your game is not Turing complete.
Yes.
Let's see, what do we have here? Actually, I think we had a question from the forum. And by the way, if any of you want to ask questions, you can submit a question if you want anonymously in the pinned chat. The link in the pinned chat. I got a question from Mail Duin. What's about expanding the game with extra content, paid DLC or not, like discarded levels or items or tools?
So yeah, hi Mulduin. He actually interviewed me around the time the game came out, and he's still asking me questions. I can't get away from this question. So, expanding the game with extra content, paid DLC or not, like discarded levels, items, tools. Well, so I'm actually in the process of doing something close to this now. The game shipped with a puzzle editor, but the puzzle experience, like the custom level experience, is not so great because players have to manually send each other files, and then when you go to play the puzzle, you have to play it inside the puzzle editor, which means that you don't have like a save file associated with that custom level pack. So I'm in the process now of building a custom system for sharing puzzles. I'm using Steam Workshop for the content sharing portion. But even for those that buy the game on itch or don't want to use Steam, there's going to be a system in place where you can have these custom level packs built by the community, and you can play those, and it should behave just the same way as the full game. And so that'll be once that's done, that'll be a good place to put things like discarded levels. If I come across some interesting ones that I discarded, I could just throw up a custom level pack there for that. And then as far as items and tools, I don't know if that's going to happen. that's the main concern there is that anything that I discarded, I haven't really tested, because there was a lot of testing that went into developing this game. I mean, you could imagine if you have 10 different items and now these other elements, they start interacting, you just have edge case after edge case. Like the entire game is an edge case, essentially. So there was a lot of automated testing that I did, and that's another big benefit I got from the solver. If I start introducing new items, I feel like it's very easy to introduce some and so I probably will stay away from that if the game gets more popular and I can justify spending time on that, I would love to do it. But as it stands, I'm probably not going to work on new mechanics unless I wanted to do a sequel.
Yeah, I think custom level is definitely interesting to see what people come up with, because people are very creative sometimes, and they think of things that you yourself wouldn't have thought of. But also, say if you do put in like unused tools, they do manage to break it, and sometimes in funny ways.
Well, I wouldn't be concerned about them breaking the new tool. I'd be concerned about the new tool causing something to break. I mean, I guess it would be isolated level, so fine. But then I don't want to find a situation where something's broken in a custom level, I have to go fix it, and any change I make, I'm going to be, not sure if it's going to break something in the main game. So that means I have to do like a few weeks of like CI/CD type testing, and that's not something that I can for something adding post launch. But custom levels, absolutely. There's so many. There's actually already 4 or 5 levels posted in the Discord. I have solved one of them, and then I realized I won't be solving these just yet. I'm going to wait till the custom level support and Steam Workshop support's in, and then I'll probably start streaming somewhat regularly to play custom levels. And yeah, I'm already seeing, just glancing at it, there's some pretty clever ideas. Someone posted their level saying, "Oh, here's something that you haven't thought of. Here's something that doesn't seem intended." And I'm like, "Oh no, what is this?" But I don't want to look at it yet. Spoiler free to when I go to solve it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had come across any interesting custom levels, but I guess that answers that.
Yeah, the one I solved was interesting by a playtester, Awesome. I'll probably solve it again when the support is in and I start doing these streams. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting level. It's one of those levels that at first it looks just like terrible. It's like this is a maze, or this is very fiddly. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. But then after a while, you're like, oh wait a minute, I see these invariants about how the animals are moving together, and then you can use that to come to a solution. So I always like that type of level. That's actually the kind of levels I've tried to build in the game, where players at the beginning they feel like this is impossible, but then once they get like the key idea, then it becomes very reasonable and something they can probably solve a minute or two after that.
Yeah, you bring up mazes, and I realize this is the kind of game that is very very apt for mazes. Do you have any levels like that in the main game?
No, I've actually tried to avoid mazes for as much as possible. This is, mazes are great, but that's not the type of game that this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be a very, because to me, mazes means that you're kind of like brute forcing in a certain sense. Of course, you do it with visual. You're not actually moving everywhere. You're visually looking at it. Dead ends are, but for the most part, it's sort of like a brute force approach, or at least that's how I solve mazes. I mean, I'm sure there's more sophisticated methods. And I've tried to really avoid that. I've tried to make it be more like a deduction-based system. It's like, oh, I need to get a guy here. He has a spring, which means he can get away from a wall, so he needs to come in from the left, and basically making observations and deductions like that. You just like logically prove this must be the solution, and then you do the solution. Those are the kind of puzzles I like the most, and that's what I tried to build.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think those are more interesting too.
Yeah, and it's kind of an unfortunate thing because the sliding mechanic is not a very novel puzzle mechanic, and in most implementations of it that I see in other games, it ends up being like mazes. Like this was popularized by like Pokemon, like ice mazes, and those puzzles, people hate them, or I mean, some people like them, but overwhelmingly I see, because it's just like solving a maze, and the movement's so unintuitive. Like you're not sure, if I move left, where do I end up? Something as simple as like left up right could put you in a spot that you didn't think about, and I've tried to combat that as much as possible because I think my game is very far away from that experience, and one of the ways that I've avoided that, well, I guess 2 ways. One is having multiple characters. Now in one hand, that makes it way more harder to think about because now movement order matters. Do I move blue penguin and then red penguin, or the other order, right? And those questions aren't necessarily interesting, but they give you, certain different paths to take. So in that sense, that makes it worse. But it allows you to do like color, or a blue penguin and a red penguin. Maybe I have a goal here and a red goal here, and that allows you to build deductions based off of where they have to end up and things like that. And then the other thing I've done is just tried to make the puzzles as small and as minimalistic as possible, so that way, unintuitive, like visualization type questions aren't as difficult in the game. Because if you have a giant like 20 by 20 puzzle and you slide to the left, it's like you're playing chess and you don't see the rook across the board or the bishop across the board, and that's sometimes very hard to spot. But if it's like a 4 by 4 board, then that wouldn't be an issue. And so yeah, just keeping things small and minimalistic has helped there.
Yeah, I definitely do appreciate keeping things small, because I know I've had some puzzle games where it's a very large field, and I kind of just nope out because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, I've tried to keep the game unique. By that I mean like having every puzzle some unique idea, and so there's some variety. There are a couple big puzzles, but yeah, for the most part, it's just tried to keep it as small as possible. If an idea is interesting, I should be able to express that idea in a small puzzle. If it only works in a gigantic puzzle, then it maybe isn't that interesting of an idea.
You mentioned streaming. Is that your Twitch channel?
Yeah, I didn't actually give you that link, but
I have it. It's fine.
You have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't stream super regularly. I used to do it more when I was like competing in some FPS games, but yeah, I try to stream a couple times a month at least. And yeah, once custom level support's in, I'll try to make it a more regular to stream Gentoo Rescue. Usually when I stream some like super competitive games so that I'm not really interacting with chat. I'm just focused on the game. But with Gentoo Rescue streams, I could actually, be a real streamer and talk to chat and things like that.
Well, actually, that gives us a good tangent. We can always go back to Gentoo Rescue afterwards, Mike. But you had mentioned in your about blurb that you had a very short esports career.
I wouldn't call it a career, but yeah, this came out in 2020, so I was still in school. I was in grad school. I graduated in 2021. But in 2020, a game came out called Diabolical, which is a first-person shooter similar to Quake Live and like old arena FPS games. At this point in my life, I kind of understood what type of games I liked. Like I grew up playing like Call of Duty and Halo, and these like team-based shooters. And I really liked shooters, but I really don't like team games. I gravitated towards like RTS, partially because of the 1v1 aspect. I've gotten fighting games, which is also 1v1. So as far as competitive games go, I kind of understood that I prefer like a 1v1 competitive experience. And so this game Diabolical came out, which is based off Quake Live, and a big focus in that game is actually the duel mode. And so I got really into that, and I didn't compete at all in 2020, but yeah, I started competing in 2021 and played that for a couple of years. Played a lot of tournaments, and then that was a lot of fun. And then yeah, during that time was also when another game came out called Lemniscape, which is a like time travel strategic first-person shooter. And so I competed in that game as well. Unfortunately, both these games are pretty small games, and they're both essentially dead now. There's no tournaments for either one. Lemniscape's not even playable. And that was kind of what led me into game development, because I realized I had spent a couple of years playing all these games, and they were small games, loved competing, but then I look back and 2 years later, it's like, oh, I won a couple $1,000s in tournaments, but like I have nothing else to show for it. The game's dead. I can't continue playing anything similar, and I was thinking, I've always wanted to get in game development. At least then after 2 years, I could maybe have a couple $1,000s, but then also have something created. And that's kind of where I am now with Gentoo Rescue.
That's a pretty good origin story. We have a related question in the responses. Do you have an interest in VTubers, and are you interested in becoming a VTuber yourself?
I wouldn't say I have an interest in it. I mean, I watch several different Twitch streams of people, especially people that are playing Gentoo Rescue. And among those are a lot of VTubers. I think I have a special interest in VTubing, but it's cool. I've seen some really well done models, and I guess in your case a PNG, and it's very creative. It's cool to see what people have created. For myself, probably not. My streams are as low tech as possible. I usually don't even have a camera on. I just voice. I turn on the stream when I feel like it. I don't have a schedule or anything like that. It's like, oh, I'm in the mood. I have 3 hours to kill. I'm in the mood to stream. Hit the button and just start playing a game. Probably not gonna ever get into like serious streaming, and I think you would need to be a little bit more serious if you were gonna do YouTube.
Yeah, honestly, sometimes the sport's better. There's a lot of work going into to put into a real stream or like serious streaming, but if it's just a side thing, yeah, definitely just keep it easy. Sorry, I'm blacking out here a little bit.
That's no worries.
Yeah. We may as well pull from the sheet again. Going back to Gentoo Rescue here, do the animals have names?
Do the animals have names? No, at least not officially. I've seen some players discuss this a little bit, but usually people just call them by the colors. So this is red penguin, this is red walrus. Because so there's penguins and walruses. The penguins, the game's called Gentoo Rescue. Gentoo is a species of penguin, so some people call the penguins gentoos. Some people call the walruses seals because they look kind of like seals. That's essentially the most of the identification that's been applied. It would be cool to have that. So there's no narrative, there's no story in the game. These are things that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing because I don't think I'm good at that area at all, and those aren't. So there's areas that I'm good in and there's areas that I'm interested in, and that would be kind of either. When I play games, I'm just super gameplay driven. I played all the StarCraft campaigns. I don't think I saw a single cutscene. Just skip. Just let me play the game. So yeah, I usually stay away from lore and narrative and stories, and so yeah, nothing is officially blessed. No canon names for any of the animals.
Yeah, it sounds like that might be something to leave to the fans.
Yeah. Come up with all the names you want.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear them.
Although I suppose, given a certain mechanic, is each of the colored animals the same every level? Like the same individual level?
Up to interpretation.
Okay. Gentoo. So go ahead.
Yeah, I can expand just on the up to interpretation part, because I see that when animals go into the water, the penguin, it's no, they can swim. The penguins like the water. They just didn't save their babies, so you lost the puzzle. Because I see Twitch stream titles are oh, we're killing penguins today. No, we're not. We're not killing penguins. So that's not up to interpretation. But the names are up to interpretation.
On the name Gentoo, then I had somebody in my YouTube community post comments about running Gentoo Rescue on Gentoo, which would have been a great bit, but I didn't have time to prep that. Do you use Linux at all?
Yeah, I've used Ubuntu over a decade now. Yeah, I mean, I don't use it. I used to use it personally with a personal computer, and then I used to use it for school, and I currently use it for work. Personal computer nowadays is just basically all Windows because all I do is get on and develop a game and play games. But yeah, I'm a software developer, so I develop on Linux.
Yeah, I do appreciate Gentoo Rescue being made available for Linux.
Yeah, I would like to even expand it beyond that, but at the very least, I had to support the Penguin OS, right? So.
Yeah, I imagine Mac support is a little bit harder to come by, so you probably need an actual Mac.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah,
and yeah, that's a good point. I have a Ubuntu machine that I test on, but if I didn't want to test, I could do everything I wanted to. I can do a cross compile from Windows to Linux and let the community test, and I probably would have done that if I didn't already have a Ubuntu machine. I say that, but Ubuntu's free, so I wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I can run it on my own hardware, right? But for Apple, it's a bigger stretch to get things to work. So yeah, unfortunately, I haven't quite got that working yet, but I would like to.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. But yeah, obviously, it is a bit of an issue trying to make support for it. You mentioned that you're a software dev. What's your favorite programming language?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite as much as I work in C++, and I do some Python scripting on the side. So I mean that's what I'm familiar with. That's what I like. I maybe don't have super strong opinions one way or the other. I don't. So my Python use is all just scripts. So very short-lived things that aren't super important. I would probably say that I prefer Python overall, and I know there's systems in place that I haven't even used, but there's systems in place to build. You can build an entire system with Python, but then have it execute like C or C++ code when performance is a real concern. And so that seems like the best of both worlds to me. But I mean, I just work with what I have, and so I'm happy with either of those.
Yeah, that's fair. I probably overuse JavaScript and Bash a little bit too much, so I get that.
Oh no, not Bash. I mean, I use Bash too, but yeah, whenever I really have to. For Bash to me is a list of commands to run. If it's more than that, it usually ends up becoming Python.
Yeah, that's what it should be. I mean, for me, I think I should learn Python, and people expect me to know Python. I don't actually know Python because everything I can do, I can either do in JavaScript or Bash, but it would be good to know.
I mean, I mean, you can solve any problem with anything. Just, you know, there's trade-offs to be had, but I wouldn't say that it's always. I wouldn't say that you have to use Python for a certain task. There's so many options available.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned earlier that you were in mathematics research. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I went to grad school for math actually, and so I have a PhD in math. I did my research in free probability, which is a branch of functional analysis. Essentially, it's like linear algebra, but in infinite dimensions. And yeah, I was there. I mean, I kind of realized pretty early on that I didn't enjoy research so much. I think I knew pretty early on I wanted to go into software development, but I'd sort of already committed a few years. I'd already passed my quals. So yeah, I went ahead and finished up, graduated, and then moved on to industry.
Yeah, I think that kind of math might go over my head a little bit.
I mean, I really love math. It's just I don't know, the whole research environment I kind of got tired of fairly quickly. It's very demanding to continue to develop new papers, and I wanted to build things that I could actually put my hands on and not just publish in a paper. So that was part of it. Software you can't really put your hands on, but you. And so that was, I think, when I entered in, quite sure, but after a few years, yeah, I kind of had my heart set on it at that point. And so yeah, it's nice to have a hobby making games, and then professionally I can also support myself working in a similar field in software development.
Yeah, it's always good to have. Continuing on the math, do you know anything about Klein bottles?
Yeah, very little. My geometry is pretty weak. My algebraic topology is pretty weak. But yeah, it's a three-dimensional shape. It's like a one-sided three-dimensional shape. It's like a four-dimensional shape, but it's like a three-dimensional slice of it, or something like this. And yeah, actually, before I made Gentoo Rescue, so there's a board game called Ricochet Robots I mentioned earlier. And I also mentioned earlier that I was into 3D printing for a little bit. I actually 3D printed some Klein bottles to use in a board game version of what is now Gentoo Rescue. So it's funny you asked that. And another piece was a Mobius. So we had these single-sided, like non-orientable surfaces or strips in an early Gentoo Rescue physical version.
It's a bit of a power move, because I think my next question is going to be, do you have thoughts on owning a Klein bottle? Because they do. I think there's a company, or like it's a family or something. They sell glass Klein bottles. I would like to own one.
Yeah, I think I've seen this on YouTube. I do not own an official Klein bottle. I 3D printed one. That's as close as I've got. And they were very small. Like they were pieces in a board game. So
yeah, that would be nice to see though. I think seeing that. Do you still have the pieces for that original board game?
I do. I don't have them on hand right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't prepare. I actually just moved in the last week, so yeah, anything. If you ask me to grab anything that's not my mouse or my water bottle, I probably can't find it.
Yeah, I don't have to dig through all those boxes and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. What else do we have here? We can go back to the sheet. I got another one here. I think I know who asked this one. Do you play Mahjong?
I play Mahjong. Actually, it was only recently that I realized that is not the same thing as Mahjong Solitaire. Because I have played Mahjong Solitaire, you know, maybe 10 games in my life. Like, I know what it is. Mahjong, the actual game, I know very little about. So no, I've never played it. I know it's a competitive game, and anything I say is going to be completely wrong. So I kind of hesitate to say anything, but I'll just say it for the content. It's like some mix between it's like poker, but you're playing with these Mahjong tiles. But then there's other elements to it. I don't think there's betting. Maybe there is.
Depends on who you play with. There can be an aspect of gambling in it. And in Japan, they have they're called jansos, and they're basically mahjong parlors, and they have gambling there.
Oh yeah, cool. I mean, I had a friend. So the reason I know this is because a friend messaged a mahjong game that someone had made. This was probably a month or two back. And I looked at it. I looked at some Twitch streams, and I couldn't understand what was going on in the first 20 seconds. So I dipped out. But at least one other person thinks I would be interested in it. I haven't had the time to actually go back and look at it.
Yeah, if you've ever played Rummy, it's actually pretty similar.
Okay, well that's not so useful. I don't think I've played Rummy.
Yeah.
But I have heard the name Rummy, so now I know if I play Rummy. Okay, now I.
Yeah, that's fair. I have a question on my side. Have you made any other games? But I think you might have answered that earlier.
So yeah, I said this is my first game, like, period, and that's technically a lie. I made in 2011, I think. I was an undergrad for software development. I was doing a math and computer science degree, and one of the TAs was trying to get students interested in developing apps. And so I downloaded like Android tools, and I wanted to learn how to make an Android app. And so I made a tic-tac-toe app. I mean, wouldn't really consider that to be a game design because I just copied the simplest, easiest game that everyone already knows. But yeah, I guess that technically would be my first like digital game that I made. Second being Gentoo Rescue.
Yeah, I think tic-tac-toe is a bit of a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Do you have any? What are the inspirations for some of these specific mechanics in the game?
That's a good one. Let me think. So the game premise itself was inspired by Baba Is You, and so with that comes a couple of mechanics. So Baba Is You, the first thing, if you think of anything, is probably where it's push, and then along with push you have pull, and so there are two mechanics that became those in Gentoo Rescue. One is it's a hammer is the push, and the magnet is a pull. And then some of the other mechanics, so the spring, that one's completely original. That was just me thinking that, oh, these animals slide, they can very easily get to walls, not so easily get away from walls. And so the spring allows them to do that in a very limited fashion. But also in a fashion that it takes away the thing they were good at before. They were good at getting next to walls, and now they can't. And that's oftentimes what you need to do with spring, which is, that's the way that I design puzzles, so to be as evil as possible. Anyway, so the other mechanics. So there's a swap mechanic that's fairly common in puzzle games. There's obviously like the whole world system that's inspired by, I guess, Baba Is You, but also maybe more Patrick's Parabox. No mechanic itself, but games like Can of Wormholes have inspired sort of the way that mechanics progress throughout the game. Essentially just like emergent consequences pop up later that you've been playing with this item for so many levels, and then it's like, oh, you can do this too? Why didn't I know that, right? How is that hidden from me? And so that, I mean, that's not I wouldn't even say that's a Can of Worms thing. That's just something that kind of did really well. It's sort of just a puzzle game thing. But that was also, something that kind of inspired. And then maybe not a mechanic itself, but sort of puzzle design was Steven's Sausage Roll. Like, I was inspired by puzzle design in a lot of different ways. Early on, Steven's Sausage Roll had a big influence, for the better or the worse. I don't know. It depends on who you are. And so by that I mean that puzzles are very, very strict. Like, you have to do the exact thing. I tried to build as much uniqueness as possible into the puzzles, because I think that lets the player sort of slowly build intuition about how the game works, but then also it gives them a way to make deductions. If this is the only, if moving right here is the only thing that will ever work, there must be some reason that you need to move right, and the player can figure that out. Whereas if you can move right or left, then the player doesn't know what to do, and maybe you do one and then it ends up being a dead end, right? And then it's not as satisfying because they didn't really come up with a solution. They just did the wrong thing and went back and did the right thing. That's not as good as saying, "Oh, I'm going to have to go right here," and then they do the correct thing. Right. And that's something that Steven's Sausage Roll kind of emphasizes a lot and influenced early design. And I tried to walk some of that back. I didn't want the game to be as difficult as Steven's Sausage Roll, but like I try to take the positive elements from any game I can. And so on the complete opposite end of the spectrum actually would be Patrick's Sparrow Box. So Patrick's Sparrow Box is famously like a, very, I'm gonna say easy, difficult puzzle game. It's an easy, like, serious puzzle game, because the designer just didn't necessarily want to introduce difficulty. They just wanted to show off interesting elements that you could do, like interesting interactions that you could see with the mechanics. And so the game ends up being kind of a showcase of all the interesting things you could do. And so that's part of the reason I try to keep things as simple and as bite-sized as possible. They still end up being difficult, but they're simple and easy to parse, and players can really should easily understand what they have to do, and maybe how they execute it might be a little hard, but the puzzles themselves should communicate as much as possible in a small amount of space.
Right. Yeah, I think I think I do see that. As I was playing through the demo, I saw various mechanics that could have been inspired by different things like Baba and Patrick's Sparrow Box. I played both of those. I haven't played any of the other ones that you mentioned, but maybe I should check out Steven's Sausage Roll. Okay, I think. Yeah. So. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say Steven's Sausage Roll is a class. It's not everyone's favorite game. It's known for being brutally difficult. Like, you get thrown into the first puzzle and you'll spend 10 minutes in the first puzzle. It's the controls are the game is basically driven by like tank controls, and so that allows you to do things, or it allows you, basically adds restrictions on what you can do, and that kind of drives at least a lot of the early game puzzles. And then it does similar things to Can of Wormholes, where new mechanics get added in a very, very secretive and subtle way as the game progresses.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like content. Yeah, I was gonna say that I think you drawing like the best parts about all of those games, it's making Gentoo Rescue is shaping up to be one of my favorite puzzle games. So good on you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's not just those either. I mean, I don't want to. Another game had some influences was Leap's Odyssey that came out last year. I haven't actually even played the game yet. I am looking forward to playing it, but one thing that the designer did was that they added this journal, essentially kind of what you have in Gentoo Rescue, so you can kind of keep track of everything that you've done before, how things work as you unlock, as you go through the game, and that's something that initially I was kind of hesitant to add because it'd be a lot of work, but it's like I've gotten a lot of great feedback on this mechanic, and even thinking back when I played Baba Is You, how nice it to be able to return to Baba Is You and not forget and not have like forgotten so many words, like how what are the subtle things like that, and that's kind of the purpose of the journal, is to just give the fine-grained details for players that really want it. The game's designed to not have those be explicitly written to the player, but for players that do want it, they can get it. but then predominantly for players that have forgotten things, because you'll have a mechanic that shows up in the early game and then you don't see it for 30 puzzles, and then all of a sudden you need it, and people are going to forget. So it's in the journal to remind you of this subtle thing that you did see before, but you may not remember.
Yeah, I think the journal is very useful, because it shows you that it teases you. Sorry, let me backtrack. It shows you what you have done, but it also teases you as for things that it could do later that you don't know about yet. In a way, that's a bit of a hint too, but
yeah, there's some descriptions in particular that I wish I could have figured out a better way to word. I mean, I can still change them. I'm not saying that I would never change them, but I don't think there's a better way to word them. I wanted the descriptions to always be as succinct as possible and describe exactly what happens. But sometimes things I describe are like, players are like, why do I care about this? It's like, well, you don't right now, but maybe you will later. And so, yeah, there's some slightly spoilery things in them. And I've had many players that are just like, oh, I didn't look at the journal at all. I didn't want to be spoiled. Great. That's the game. The game works that way.
yeah.
And then, yeah, if you need those details, then you have them.
Because I know when I was playing through the demo, when I was stuck on a certain level, I checked the journal, checked the light bulb to see if there was any mechanic that I was missing, and it was basically just a confirmation that yes, I had them all, or no, I was missing something.
Yes, and then speaking of that, actually, so you played the demo. I haven't updated. This is something that I added maybe a week or two after the game came out. Was that light bulb that's white? It actually will be yellow if there's something missing. So that way players that don't want to look at the journal entries themselves can just quickly open the journal and see, oh, it's yellow, I need to learn something. And as opposed to, assuming they already knew everything. And then that kind of gives some idea that, oh, I need to experiment some more. You don't know what you're missing. I mean, even if you open the list, you still wouldn't know what you're missing, because it doesn't unlock until you've done it. But just getting the confirmation that you are missing something is important. Because in a way, the game kind of plays like a Metroidvania, where you slowly unlock not just abilities, which you kind of do, but also you slowly learn things about the game. And that's always scary with a puzzle game, because in a Metroidvania, if you have a jump that you can't make, it's very clear that oh, I need to come back and do this later. But in a puzzle, when you open a puzzle, it looks impossible, because every puzzle looks impossible when you first open it. So how do you communicate to the player that, oh, I have to come back later to do and I've tried the best I can to communicate that with puzzle design itself, like the layout of the puzzles. Like that inconceivable puzzle in the demo is as small and as simple as possible. And then there's a version of that in the full blown that's even simpler than that. But even for a failsafe, you have the journal to say, oh, or you have the hints that explicitly say, oh, this is impossible right now, come back later. To get around that barrier that every puzzle looks impossible. How do players get told that this puzzle is impossible unless they're explicitly told it? And so sometimes you actually have to explicitly have that somewhere.
Yeah, and then you just gotta hope that they actually read it.
Well, that's the fallback. So I hope that they discover it themselves based on the way I've designed the puzzle. If I've done my job, that's really. But then, yeah, if they do get stuck, I hope the content there, materials.
Yeah. You've touched a lot on puzzle. I mean, obviously, Gentoo Rescue is a puzzle game. What's your favorite puzzle game that you played?
Baba Is You. That's not surprising, because I made a game inspired by it. If it wasn't for Baba Is You, development at all. So yeah, that was definitely a big inspiration, and main inspiration for my game as well.
How far have you gotten?
I completed the main campaign. This was this was in 2020 actually. This was the same year I started playing my competitive games. A few months before that actually is when I played Baba Is You. So yeah, I completed the main. I did 100% of the main game. I haven't played the New Adventures DLC that came out, and I haven't really explored custom levels.
Yeah, I haven't played through most of that. The two new ones. Some of them are pretty difficult, and some of them I did just know about it, but I think they're worth going through at some point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Baba, there are some puzzles that I don't think, like, there are some decisions that game made that I tried. The whole idea of, when you discover a new mechanic, sometimes in Baba, that discovering the mechanic is some really fiddly thing that you have to, like, combine things, without spoiling too much, you had to combine things together you didn't know was possible. And it's in the context of a giant world, and some of those puzzles can really can be very difficult. And I did look up some hints on a few of those, because after a couple of hours, there's no point in beating your head against the wall. And also, I'm the type of player that, like, I will 100% World 1 before moving on to World 2. And so, yeah, after 2 hours of being stuck on a single puzzle at the end of a world, I kind of want to move. Can't do it. So yeah, I think I used hints for 2 or 3 levels in Baba.
Yeah, I think I have an idea which specific mechanic you're talking about. Axamarian, welcome in. What games do you play that aren't video games?
Aren't puzzle games or aren't video games?
Video games.
I was in the board games for a little bit. This was when I was in school. We would the math department, we'd have like weekly board games. I never got really into board games, but like we played a lot of Set is a card board game. It's like a pattern matching game. Played Catan and all the classics. I got into chess for a little bit. Queen's Gambit, of course, everyone did for a few months, and so that would be one thing. And then I grew up actually playing baseball, so I think that should count.
Yeah, I think that counts.
And yeah, outside of that, it's just video games for me.
Yeah, I guess the next question I was going to ask was what other hobbies do you have outside of like game dev? I guess baseball counts as one.
I was still. I used to play softball a couple years ago, but I don't do that anymore. I've been too busy. But yeah, still baseball. Outside of game development, I spend a lot of time playing games. I, pretty typical. Like I'll watch TV shows. I'm not really into movies. I have a piano behind me that I play a little bit, but I'm completely untrained, and I just like hit keys, and that's sometimes relaxing. No major hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies that kind of I'm really into for like a couple months, and then it's like I never did that again. Never like look into it again. So I was into fountain pens at one point. I was into keyboards. I'm still kind of into keyboards, but like I made this keyboard like 4 years ago, and I haven't made a new one since. This is a Manuform keyboard. This is one half of it. The other half is here. So once I made this one, I actually kind of fell out of the keyboard hobby. They say that's finding your in-game keyboard, and then you don't have to do it anymore. So that's another one that I was into.
That's really keyboard nice. I haven't gotten myself into keyboards, but I do have a very particular affinity for buckling spring and ThinkPad keyboards.
Yeah, I used to have a buckling spring keyboard. I don't know where it is. They're kind of heavy. They get tiring after a while if you're working and typing all day, and then you go and play games afterwards. These keys actually are. I put the lightest spring I could find in them to make them as light as possible, just to hopefully help my fingers not get as tired.
Yeah. 59 here says, yeah, I stumbled into my endgame. That's softy. Softball aside from solder joints failing on occasion. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that too. Yeah, I made this keyboard. I soldered it, and it's like hand wired, and I've had some failures. I've had to go back and open it up and fix some things.
we had an image on the thumbnail of you with a globe. What's the story behind that one?
It's me being a lot thinner than I am now. But, yeah, this was before COVID, so it's quite old now. This was at, I forget the name. And this was in Montreal. This was at a museum. And I don't really take many pictures. Like I am not a big social media person. I have a Twitter and Blue Sky. It's basically exclusively because of Gentoo Rescue. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have those accounts and wouldn't be on socials at all. And this was just a picture I had on my computer because it's like one of the rare times I actually posed for a picture. But yeah, I was in Montreal for a conference for math, and went to the Science Museum at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually trying to figure out how you keep the globe up like that. I'm assuming that there are probably some invisible wires there.
There's not wires. There's just a pole that I'm.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
it's like horizontal. That's like, I don't know how to do it, but it's like going like this behind me, and I'm standing here, and my hand's the globe. So like it's just like this.
It's a pretty good illusion there. I actually was wondering if I should I was wondering words. I was going to hold off on asking any music questions, but since you did mention piano, I guess that gives me liberty to do so. What's your musical background?
I got a piano when I was in actually grad school, just as like a relaxation hobby, and I kind of learned the piano a little bit while studying for my qualifying exams, because the best way to procrastinate something is to do something when I say learned, like I learned how to read music and I can memorize songs. Like that's basically as far as I've gotten. Like I can't sight read. I did compose the music for Gentoo Rescue, but I don't think it's particularly great. I don't really have a good foundation there. But yeah, it's just like I play arpeggios on the piano and they sound good. Relax.
Yeah, I mean honestly, that's all I do too. I do think the music in Gentoo Rescue is pretty nice. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Have any more questions? I think we have a question here. By the way, if any of you want to ask questions, the link is pinned in the chat if you want to submit anything anonymously or not anonymously. We have one here. What's for dinner?
What's for dinner? What time is it? Yeah, it's actually almost dinner time. I don't know. I don't have plans. I'll have to go talk to someone and see if they want to go out. It's Saturday, so we might go out and get some Japanese barbecue or something like that, or just pizza. I think that's always an option.
Those sound like pretty good options. What's your cuisine of choice?
I mean, it's. I would say it varies, but actually it really doesn't. Like I like a lot of I like Thai fried, like basil fried rice, like Thai basil. It's probably top 3, if not top 1. Of course, pizza. I already mentioned. And if number 3 would have to be maybe Italian. Maybe I'm very basic Italian, like chicken parmesan, like Americanized, completely not authentic Italian. Yeah, I think I'd probably go with Thai basil fried rice. Probably my favorite.
No, that sounds pretty good. Now you mentioned pizza, and we gotta ask: pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I don't order it, but if someone else orders, I don't judge. But yeah, that's not my first choice. It's weird, but it's. I like pineapple. I like pizza. I'll eat it. And it's hard to find a bad topping on pizza anyway.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I personally, I like pineapple on pizza, so we're good there. Do I have any more questions on my side? I think we may have covered everything that I've thought of. And we got nothing else from the list. Do you have anything you want to mention about the game or yourself or anything else? Or anything you want to point out in the demo?
Point out in the demo. No, I mean, I saw you did 100% of the demo the other day, so I think you've got that covered. I don't think there's really anything worth adding. If anything, I don't want to give additional context to anything. I will say that the demo is kind of a handcrafted thing. It's not like just the first, X amount of the game. Kind of designed, like the first world is basically the same as what appears in the full game. Second world on, it's all like designed just for the demo, to try to keep things as simple as possible. You mentioned earlier the journal. You liked how it would kind of tell you the depth of the game by just seeing how many entries you don't have unlocked yet. The game does a really good job of doing that on its own, without spoiling too much. But I mean, it's a really early game thing. That, like tutorial world, you zoom out and you see like all the stuff that you have to do, and maybe at that time you don't have the context for it. Like you don't realize that this is as big as it is. But then once you go into second place and you see how deep everything is, then you have that. And I think the demo kind of doesn't show that off as much because obviously it's really small and I had to keep it short. Anything else about the game? I mean, I can't think of anything specific that I really want to mention. I mean, I think it's a great game. It's doing quite well. It's done better than I expected after release, and people seem to really like it. I've seen a lot of people say it's their favorite puzzle game of this year. It's puzzle game of the year for them. Obviously, I think Blueprints has got it edged out by a little bit, but yeah, it's doing quite well. So yeah, if you're into any based type games, Baba Is You, Monsters Expeditions, a game like we haven't mentioned yet, Patrick's Fur Box, even Sausage Roll, games like this, then yeah, definitely check out Gentoo Rescue.
Yeah, absolutely. The links for all of those, for Gentoo Rescue, is in the description, as well as I think there's links to the Twitter, Blue Sky, and the Discord for Gentoo Rescue. So if you'd like to hop in there and see some of what goes on behind the scenes and custom levels, whatnot. What else is in there?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, people can be free to ask me whatever they want, and so sometimes people just come to Discord and ask me random stuff. But yeah, predominantly it's there for custom levels, and I'm currently, as I mentioned earlier, ramping up improving the custom level experience, including Steam Workshop. I should be finishing the first draft of that. I have a test branch up on Steam in a couple days, and so if anyone's wanting to help test that, then that's come to Discord and and you'll see a message there, and we can talk about it. And yeah, going forward, that's kind of what I'm focusing on for the next couple of weeks. And once that's out, that'll be sort of like the big update for Gentoo Rescue. And after that, maybe I can look at things like Mac support and annoyances like this. But yeah, that's what you can do in the Discord.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. I will definitely, I think, add this to my list of games to stream. I think I have a couple more things to go through before I get to this, but I am pretty excited to see what's in the full game. Because if the demo is anything to go by, and it's only a small portion, then what does the full game have to offer?
It's a lot. I've tried to pack as many interesting, and it's a very dense. I think the game is very dense and interesting ideas, but then the game is also long, so you can just imagine that there's a lot of interesting things that happen. I mean, I'm slightly biased, so but yeah, if you do stream it, yeah, just feel free to send me a message. I'd love to watch.
Sure. Yeah. I think he gave an estimate about 30 plus hours.
Yeah, it's definitely 30 plus. I've seen people say that it took them 70 hours the game. Some take only 33 hours of 100% the game. So there's a lot of variance in puzzle games. It's hard to really pin down. I mean, I see games talk about how many levels, how long is the game? This is how many puzzles. That alone is not a good metric. And time to play is a better metric, but even that's not so real. It just varies so much from player to player. How willing they are to look for hints, how willing they are to just move on. Cause the game has a lot of optional puzzles, and so if you get stuck, you can just move on and go do new things and maybe come back later. Players that don't do that are going to tend to spend a lot longer because they'll just beat their head against the wall until they finally figure out something that they might have figured on and did other things and maybe realized what they needed in different contexts. But yeah, somewhere between 30 to 70, 75 hours, probably somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, it's definitely a good game for stream then, because it means we got a long series to go. Yeah, I think it's definitely important to, as a player, as a player of a puzzle game, to recognize when you're stuck and just come back to it later. Because if I had stayed at that one level, that's impossible. I would have been stuck there for, well, forever, basically.
Yeah, I think one issue you had is that you thought you had to stay there. You were on the lock, and you didn't realize you could undo off the. That's something that might have actually been because of mouse. Because I see a lot of players, like with controller or keyboard, if they try to spam like move off of the lock, the game tells you to undo. But when you're using mouse, you're probably not going to spam click. But if you had, you would see that it told you to undo. And so that's something that is hopefully tutorialized a little bit better in the full game. So I mean, definitely will be, because the first instance of an impossible level like that is literally possible, and you can't actually move. That you can't, like, I think you were able to make 3 moves before seeing that it was impossible. In this version of the full game, there's like 0 moves you can make. So it's a little bit more, I think, it's clear about about encouraging you to move on.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I think... Do we have any more questions in the sheets? This is the last chance, chat. If you have anything, you can either pop them in chat or just very quickly send it over in the form. But yeah, I think that's it for my questions. As far as I can just do a double check here. I have a line here that says what's, and I didn't finish it, so I think I'm going to skip that one.
I can't answer that question, so yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, I think that's probably it then. I was gonna ask if you have anything more you want to add as closing words, but I kind of already did that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go check out Gentoo Rescue, go wishlist it and play the demo and play the full game. And then yeah, you have all the links for everything where you can find me, and yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm open to hear from anyone.
Absolutely. And thanks for coming on. Links in the description for chats. Absolutely do go check out the game.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. As for my stuff, what do we have? This is Saturday, so that takes us to the end of the week. Schedule will be out early next week. So unlike you, I actually do schedules. But we will have something special coming up on Thursday. It is a... actually, that kind of ties into one of the earlier questions. It is a Mahjong learning stream, so if you want to come up for that, you learn how to play Mahjong.
I might check it out. You said Thursday?
Thursday, I can send you a link.
Yeah, and yeah, unfortunately, I'll probably be in work meetings, so I'll have to watch it on mute, which probably won't be so great. But yeah, I'll be around. Can work at least. All
right. Yeah, for the rest of the week, I'll figure out what else I'm doing, and I'll post the schedules in the usual places. Okay. I think that is it. I don't see anything else in the forum. Nobody else is saying anything in chat. So thank you, Jagriff, and yeah, go play the game. All right, bye, chat.
Thank you.